Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining this conversation tonight. My name is Chanel Laponte Pearson, and I'm a proud member of the New Negress Film Society. We are a creative collective centering the voices of Black women and non-binary filmmakers. The programming we offer, the conversations we facilitate, and the films that we produce are all rooted in the legacy of collective art making, institution building, and consciousness raising. All of our work is grounded in the personal and political realities of Black people everywhere. And welcome to our second annual Black Women's Film Conference. We're very, very happy to have you join us. We're also incredibly grateful for those partners that have helped to make this possible. So Warner Media, Ford Foundation, POV, Black Public Media, and all of our supporters who have been with us over the years. I also want to give a big shout out to the two other folks of the conference committee, Stephanie St. Ange and Yvonne Michelle Shirley, and also want to give a shout out to Nene Diallo, who has been an incredible coordinator in getting all of this conference together. So thank you so much, Nene. Please continue to check out the films that we're presenting for this year's conference. Those films are available on our website at the newnegressfilmsociety.com. And please check out next week's filmmaker conversation, as well as our closing party with Diani. So for tonight's conversation, we have two incredible filmmakers who will be in conversation with each other. First, we have Jatavia Gary, who is an artist and filmmaker. Jatavia's work seeks to liberate the distorted histories through which Black life is often viewed through documentary film and experimental video art. Jatavia has charted ways structures of power shape our perceptions around representation, race, gender, sexuality, and violence. Jatavia's film, the GIVERNY document, is now available on our website, and we thank Jatavia for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have Rikkí Wright. Rikkí is a photographer and filmmaker based in Los Angeles. Her work explores notions of community and sisterhood, especially among women of color. And she looks at the ways a community can mold or expand our ideas of femininity and masculinity, strength, and beauty. Rikkí's film, A Song About Love, is also available online, and we're happy to have you, Rikkí.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's actually Rikkí.
Rikkí, damn it.
Rikkí.
Sorry. Yeah, I was trying to pay attention to the accent.
No.
So I'm gonna fall back now and leave the conversation to you two. If there's anything, let us know. But thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I'm super excited to be in conversation with you. This is like our first time actually having a formal conversation, I feel like, beyond the internet and DMs and Instagram. But thanks for bringing my film, introducing my film into the conference. I'm really grateful for that. I feel like I personally have just had the opportunity over the past year to experience your film in different spaces and different conferences, and actually in just like different emotional and mental states in my own life. So just being asked that question, do you feel safe? Feels like a check-in. It's been feeling like a check-in, like over the past, all the festivals that I've been able to watch it in. And I'm like, that's today in this current moment, I don't feel safe.
Yeah. No, it's upsetting, I guess, how timeless, I guess, this particular work will be. But yeah, you know, I mean, I'm gonna try to make it through this fucking.
No,
I haven't been online, so I've been offline for like
I've noticed
23 days. So that's important. It's been good. I mean, it's like things are still really weird and terrible to some extent, but I feel like I've reclaimed, you know, a portion of my mind, which feels really great. And that's something that I would recommend for a lot of people. And I don't want to sound smug, you know, like, oh, I've been offline, you know.
Right.
That happened. I mean, we're all in process, but I think that it's important for people to kind of unplug, especially when you think about what these things are doing to our minds, especially during moments like this. I get the need to kind of collectively grieve, but I think there's also the important thing is to just kind of get really quiet sometimes in these moments. So I feel like I would have been worse if I were plugged in right now and doom scrolling, because I've got my own rage to work through. I don't need to work through the rage of the thousands of people that I follow.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, that's a little bit off topic.
No, I feel like just going back to like the collective grief, and I mean, I feel like right now I'm in a constant state of grief. I feel like I've been that way for the past 6 months, but yeah, I don't know if we have had that moment within all of this. I just feel like there's still the hamster wheel thing going on. There's still this normalizing this moment that's happening, and not just like really sitting with, I don't know, just the collective grief. I don't think we've had that moment, and taking that time feels like a great.
Yeah, I don't know if it will be able to even, I mean, we can do what we can right now, you know, but given our particular circumstances where we are so disconnected from one another in terms of physical presence and touch, you know, these rituals surrounding death are having to be completely different. They're absent for the most part, unless you are, you know, I don't know. Nobody is having a fucking funeral. I mean, there's
no, I flew. My brother was killed like a month ago, and I flew back home. Oh no, thank you for that. But I flew back home, and I just feel like Black people as a collective, like we can't not have that moment in some way. And we found a way to have that moment. It was terrifying for me in different ways, just because that was my first time traveling during this whole pandemic. I flew, and just being in space with everybody, like the masks were there. It's completely different. It's a lot of reprogramming, but you know, program subject to change. Program subject to change always. I feel like people are still finding a way, but
they are. I'm always a little nervous because I go and see my mama maybe once every 2 weeks, much to her dismay. But I pass a funeral home, a kind of historic Black funeral home, on my way to see her, and there's literally always a service. So people are having funerals, but then I get nervous because I'm like, oh shit, people are having funerals.
Yeah,
they're in there together.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm just, it's strange. I'm hoping that one thing that I have been able to do, and a friend of mine has been able to do, is convene Black women in spaces like this over Zoom, to kind of address mental health needs, you know, or whatever comes up.
I feel like we could have had that moment there was an opening night where we all met each other and talked, and at the end we were like, wait, can we do this again? Like at the end of the conference, just because this was such a great check-in. We realized that not everybody is fully open, not everybody is able to create in this moment. What is the creation for in this moment? I don't know, like how have you been dealing with what you have been, ongoing works that you've been working on, new creations that you're creating? Is it possible? Are you?
I've been having a lot of breakthroughs. There's something really amazing that happens when you slow down, you know, and when you get really quiet. So aside from being off of the socials, I've also renounced a number of other vices, and have been able to kind of clear my head and my mind. And so there was some resistance around a project, and I feel like I am breaking through that resistance now. And just like there's a lot of, and this is why I was like, I think it's important for people to disconnect. Like a self-help person in a minute. But you know, when I'm not scrolling, I'm actually watching a bunch of films, or I am reading up some books, reading an article, or listening to music, and sometimes I'm just literally staring into space, you know, kind of breathing, and things arise, and not all of those things are good. You know, I have a therapy session, I have a therapy practice, a number of practices that help me kind of ground myself and center myself, and I find that they run right alongside of the creative practice as well. So it's been a struggle, but it has been a very productive and generative struggle. There's a lot of internal work I feel like is happening. And I've had to say no to a bunch of things. Like, so, you know, everybody wants to exhibit a bunch of shit right now. They want to speak to the current moment. They've got their finger on the pulse. And
it doesn't even feel right. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
And so I'm just like, let's talk in like 2022, you know, like let's see if you're still about this life in 2022, because I've got this other thing that I'm doing. So I think that despite the upheaval, and I work pretty well in upheaval. It's almost as if I'm unfortunately quite comfortable with the amount of resistance and upheaval. So I'm doing okay. You know, how about yourself?
Yeah, I feel like as well I have this relationship with I don't know, working under pressure, and just like that pattern in my life. Like, it's just been that force that kind of drives me sometimes. So that can sometimes serve as it's not good, because I do need to sit down and slow down. And I think I had a existential moment the other day where I'm just like, what am I actually doing? I mean, I still am taking jobs. I'm still like shooting a lot of portrait stuff and still going out, and I don't know sometimes what it's for in this moment. So I feel like saying no is a thing that I'm actually working on, and actually not feeling like I need to rely on the money or making a career, or I don't know. I'm just like in that moment of what is that for in this moment, beyond my peace of mind, beyond my my heart and my, I don't know, anxiety. And I'm just like, I need to breathe. So
yeah,
just taking that. Can you share what rituals or like what things you do to I don't know, that's been helping you push through?
Some of them I can share. I can't share all of them. But one thing that's really important, and for me, for somebody who does have anxiety and a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas and a lot of kind of, you know, the brain is always going. I wake up in the mornings and I journal at least 3 pages. So I'm just wake up and write sometimes. If I can do it 3 or 4 times a week, then that's a success. And it started when I read this book. Somebody told me to work through The Artist's Way. I think her name is Julia. And I didn't make it through that book. I may have made it to chapter 5, but I kept up with the artist pages. You know, I don't stop. I didn't stop that. I find that it helps me think through my thoughts more. You know, like I have to slow down. I have to sit there and articulate, pen to paper, what I'm actually thinking and feeling. And I'm not trying to write some sort of like treatise. You know, it can be messy. It's a free write. So it's just kind of like a brain dump in the morning. I also have a prayer life, which is funny because, you know, a lot of people, I don't know, maybe I'm perceived as a kind of heathen. But I have a pretty active prayer life. I have a number of altars here that I engage with. And I walk in the park several times a week and get some fresh air. So, and then I talk to friends, people that, you know, for the last maybe 2, 3, 4 years, I've had very kind of slippery relationships with. They should have been stronger. I've been to strengthen those relationships during this time. Yeah. So like sitting on the phone and like either talking to them, but my favorite thing to do is to leave these very elaborate voice messages for people.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes they become these kind of back and forth call and response situations. But shout out to my friend Chico and Lucas and Crystal and Eniola, all of these people, and Daniel. I'm always like, I have a group of people that I had wanted to be closer with, but because
community building is still happening.
Yeah, you know how you start doing a bunch of shit and your relationships suffer sometimes. And in this moment, I've been able to kind of reclaim these very profound relationships, and that has been one of the positives of this time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you ever journal your dreams when you wake up?
I had a crazy fucking dream yesterday, 2 days ago, and I woke up and it was so fresh on my mind. I didn't even want to go get pen and paper. I just memo and was like, "Yo, some Pierce Brosnan looking motherfucker was chasing me." It was just.
Yeah, you gotta do it because it escapes so fast. Mm-hmm. What? How? I experienced that for hours, like unconsciously.
Yeah,
it's like gone. Like,
quick.
Yeah, quick.
I just got a weighted blanket, so my dreams have been super vivid because my REM sleep has increased. So my dreams are like.
I'm scared of those.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't do it every night. It's rough.
Right. You take naps with them.
Yeah. Or I take I'll do like part of the time.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's talk about your archival practice.
I could. I guess my introduction to the archive before I even knew what archive and how important it is to our collective history was me searching for my own history. My mother passed away when I was 2 years old, and I can remember when I was around 12 or 13 trying to go back and find photos of myself and photos of my mom and just like a bunch of things that I feel like mother or the matriarch of the family is usually the person that keeps these heirlooms and things together, the photo books and scrapbooks and things, and was not finding myself anywhere. And so it turned into this like really intense at like 14, 15, like going back down south to my grandmother's in the summertime, going through all the books, going through all our photos, and like just trying to really see who my mother was. She passed away when she was pretty young, 37, and I had so many questions and so many. I was like becoming this person, and I'm just like, wow. I think that if my mom was here, like I could ask her these questions, and I didn't really know who she was, so. That was my introduction, like to the archive and collecting these tangible things and memories and photos and images of the person who brought me here, and trying to answer questions about myself, and realizing that within just looking for photos of my mother, I could find a lot of answers about myself through the stories and memories and recollections of the collective, and finding that within the archive. So it's just helped inform my work, helped inform my life, myself. Just something that's ever giving. And I feel like as a filmmaker, an experimental filmmaker, it's been so helpful to be able to use this this tool and this like force to piece my story together in a way. So yeah.
Wow. And for this particular film, A Song About Love, what was that process like?
Well, this video or song by the Clark Sisters is just a song that since I was a kid, I definitely would sing it, and I keep coming back to it, this specific video, when I would hear them sing and would hear and see the Clark Sisters in general was like my Destiny Child, like that in my household. That's like who me and my sisters could listen to, and so we loved everything they created. So that specific song, I don't know, the riff, the organ, the way they sang about God and the spirit, and just the way that I was introduced to God and the spirit in general. I just felt a sense of the same tingly feeling that I get when I hear the song is the same feeling that I felt when I first like had a arousal experience. And so I feel like intertwining that piece of work within the imagery of my body and just like me exploring my body in a way in movement. I'm not really a dancer, but I just like felt compelled to move in that way, free, the way that I feel like I have experienced when I was going to church. I feel like things that I saw in church, like catching the spirit and the Holy Ghost, and just losing your body and going into that space. And so like when you put in these pieces together, I feel like was a part of myself just being put on film.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly affecting.
It was definitely tough to do that. I don't even know if my sisters have seen the work, but I know that my family probably has not. They would probably flip. But it was uncomfortable for me to sit with the two, but it is what I was feeling. It is what I feel sometimes when I hear gospel music, and those goosebumps. I just found out like the chemical reaction that happens to your body. I don't know if you feel that, but when you hear like really good music, it's called frisson, and it's a chemical reaction to hearing, I don't know, good music or just being affected, really affected by a piece of work or a piece of art, a film or something of that nature. And I feel like I've been experiencing that, and I first felt that when I was in church, and then I also feel that usually when I'm hearing like a good bass line or something that moves my body in that way.
Yeah.
The organ.
Right. I mean, I've said this a lot. I grew up in a Pentecostal church with, just like hardcore performance music and ritual. And this is definitely a song that, also, I should say for a while, I don't know if I've said this before publicly, but my mother was so dogmatic that we were not allowed to listen to secular music. We had to sneak it. So we would sneak Brandy and Monica and like Janet Jackson and Tupac. But what was always present was John P. Key, the Clark Sisters, Shirley Caesar, Donald Lawrence, just like all of these choirs and these groups and these soloists. Like it was just kind of like on a loop. Mm-hmm. So I understand the connection to this particular type of artistry, which I feel like is very specific. And it is a kernel that I feel like gave, bare fruit, brought forth all of this kind of like, all of these various different types of music and performance all over the world. So I'm so grateful, I have tons of critiques for the church, but I'm very grateful for this particular part of it.
And I was trying to be very, very careful and try to show my understanding of where the critique actually comes from. And I think that I've been trying to take that approach to a lot of addressing my past and relationships in my life. Just being careful not to disrespect or misunderstand, because I still have a lot of women in my family, and I mean my parents are still the bishop and first lady, so I have to be careful with that, which is hard in my work sometimes, because I have been damaged in some ways. Addressing that. How do you?
The church, there's a ton of trauma there, and I think a lot of people are attempting to work through it nowadays. in ways that perhaps they hadn't in earlier generations.
Yeah.
Or trying to at least hold both of the many truths around the Black church. I feel like I'll stop there.
Right. Yeah.
But I do, speaking of critiques, and I don't know if this is a critique as much as it is an observation, perhaps it's a critique, around archival use right now. I feel like there's a kind of aesthetic trend that I see. And this is coming from somebody who's still fairly new. You know, a lot of people are like, you know, you're an emerging filmmaker, and I'll take that. I take that on. I don't think that I'm mid-career. I don't think that I'm established. But I did make a film in 2015, you know, and other people have made films, very noted folks, that utilize the archive in a way that is very effective. And, you know, it is coupled with music. And I'm seeing from some younger filmmakers a lot of like, I'm not saying that there's mimicry. What I am saying is there's a trend. And what I would hope to impress upon the younger filmmakers is the need for a certain type of rigor and research and a certain due diligence and connection to the actual material, rather than a kind of freewheeling.
Yeah, I just found this really beautiful.
You know, plucking and laying it on the track and letting that montage be the thing. I think that a playlist or a mashup does not an experimental film make. I think that I know that there are techniques and there are processes, you know, there's a history to this. There's ideas around this that make for an effective and powerful work. And if the younger people who are watching would take anything from what I'm saying, it would be that, like, make sure that and I'm not trying to gatekeep, like, I actually can't stand a gatekeeper. There's tons, but I think that it's important to know what you're doing, in addition to feeling led, you know, in addition to having this kind of impulse, you know, if that makes sense. And another thing is, I don't think that everybody needs to go to film school. I don't think that has to happen. In fact, in order to be successful, I had to unlearn a lot of things from film school. But I don't know, there are filmmakers right now who are active right now who wear I didn't go to film school like a badge of honor. And my response to that would be, I can tell, you know? And so I don't think that everybody should go to film school, but I do think that everybody should learn their craft. That, again, this is pointing to my first statement. Understanding that, you know, a quick little cute montage with a bunch of effects, like that may be cool, you know, that may give you what you need. But that may not be, push yourself, right, as an artist to go further. Push yourself as an artist to do the research around what a montage is and how a montage came about and what a montage is used for intellectually, emotionally, politically, etc. So that's my one little critique, because we're talking about the archive, right? And the archive is super trendy. Everybody wants to make an Arthur Jaffa-like film, or they want to be Khalil Joseph, or maybe they've seen an ecstatic experience and they want to cobble something together. And to that I say, great, follow that impulse. But follow that impulse to, you know, further than YouTube is what I'm saying. I hope I don't sound like a fucking asshole, you know, but this is you know, I don't know. I went to school and I had to fight. From people who were saying, I don't know what you're doing. So I want to encourage the impulse of experimentation. I want to encourage the impulse of rule breaking. But in order to break the rules, one has to
know the rules.
Yes, for the young people listening.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of my real big hangups, like not going to film school, and in the midst of like creating some pieces of work, or I don't know, just feeling validated in a sense, I found a community in which I was introduced to filmmakers and filmmakers of the LA Rebellion, and just being in community with being able to watch some films that I don't have Criterion Collection, didn't have Criterion Collection, but I just, things that I had heard of but never had access to, and access in the, like, I feel like that's been something I've been thinking about a lot in this time, like stuff that I've not ever thought that I would have the opportunity to see, or conversations that I feel like I would not have had the opportunity to witness, are accessible in this moment. And I think about that in the sense of just my work being shown and people experiencing my work that necessarily would not walk into a gallery or come to a screening, or I guess just filmmakers or people that I know who are interested in film, not even thinking about film school. But I feel like I have always felt storytelling was a part of my makeup. Just being able to get that out in film, I came upon it as a way. I'm like, this is my tool. This is the way that I feel like I can put it out. But then that anxiety around, I didn't go to film school. No, I did not see all these films that are being dropped and name dropped. And but I will do my research, and I will come across the works that I feel like help shape and create my craft.
Yeah, and this is not an admonishment. Like, I haven't seen everything either. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh,
But there are. Yeah.
That's not. No. I'm just saying, with the work that if whatever you're doing needs to have a kind of conceptual basis, or a reason. One thing that I did take from film school that I didn't throw away was everything in the frame, everything in the film has a reason. Like, there's a motive behind it. Nothing is willy-nilly. Nothing is just like, oh, I just threw it in there because it looked good, and I'm seeing that, Yeah. And I think because it's experimental, people feel like they can get away with slippage. I once had somebody tell me, a colleague tell me, Jatavia, you make experimental films because they're easier. You don't make traditional films are hard, and that's why you're making experimental films.
Did you internalize that?
No, I think it's vice versa. Yeah. Experimental films are hard. Traditional films, I won't say that they're easy, but there is a map.
You have a story.
Like there's, I won't call it paint by numbers, but you have a map. You have, you've got your script, you've got a shot list, you've got all of these things that kind of detail.
That's why my thinking about being in the commercial world and creating, just being given a story by somebody, it's like, that seems like the easy way out, or that seems like, how can I have to make this mine in some way, and now I have to actually, I don't know, looking at.
Is the audio, somebody is saying there's weird audio going on. Let us know if there's still a problem. Also, we've got a really good question here from Andrea Yarbrough. Andrea, sorry. She says, what ways are y'all thinking about care and the archive, given the trend? Considering how healing the archive can be, and or the space it gives for us to engage in critical fabulation or other imaginations. Wow, that's a really good question. I mean, I'm kind of obsessed with the archive, and for me, I approach it, it's really great because I listened into Ayanna Dozier. She's a Black woman scholar and filmmaker, really, 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 really smart. She gave a talk on Saidiya Hartman today and one yesterday. She spoke about Hartman's archival practice. And I was in the one yesterday. And I think I really try to draw connections to Black feminists in my work and their thoughts. In fact, a lot of their thoughts, if we're talking Bell Hooks, Horton Spillers, Saidiya Hartman, Christina Sharp, a lot of their works provide conceptual basis, a conceptual foundation for my work. So engaging with the archive, I'm thinking about how Saidiya Hartman engages with this archive, understanding that it is not, you know, an objective space, that it's a space of contention, that it is a curated thing. It is not neutral. So I go in there not necessarily seeing it as a space of healing. I feel like my practice, my interventions on the archive are acts of healing and acts of care. So when I engage with a 16 millimeter film that might include Ruby Dee or Louis Armstrong, I'm thinking about how they are being depicted in the frame. I'm thinking about the historical and cultural context for when this work was made. Also, I'm considering what my hand is doing to this work, because I have a practice of manipulating this archive on the surface. So it's not just a digital engagement, it's an analog engagement where I am scratching and etching for months long, you know, periods of time. So there's a kind of engagement, a very intimate engagement between myself and the subjects that are presented there. Additionally, it is a kind of refusal in many ways for what is being presented there. Sometimes I am highlighting and bringing to the forefront what I feel like needs to be seen more clearly. Other times I am obscuring things, pointing to things, like marking them out. I'm making an edit on top of the archive. I am intervening on the archive in a way to preserve the dignity of the dead. In some ways it is akin to wake work. Yes, someone just said, do you consider it a form of wake work? Yeah, wake work. It's me attempting to also place myself within this historical trajectory, understanding that, you know, like I didn't spring forth, you know, out of the ether, like so. If I am a filmmaker, I am in conversation with the person who was shooting, you know, the piece that I am using. I'm in conversation with the performers who are in the frame. And so what is their experience? How does their experience speak to contemporary, my experience? So there's a lot of thoughts around that, but I'll just stop there.
I recently heard Barbara McCullough talk about how when she was creating Water Ritual, #1, and just the moment of going back on past selves, just your ancestors, and reaching back and using that to through and continue a story. I feel like that has informed me, and definitely about what am I doing with this? What am I trying to say with this? Saidiya Hartman, I've been really drugged by Beautiful Lives and Wayward. Beautiful Experiment.
Wayward Lives, Beautiful Experiments.
Wayward was a beautiful experiment, yes. And the depth in which, the research process, I think it just opened my eyes to how real and how careful and how intentional we must be in these explorations. And
I'm wondering if other people have comments or questions, because I don't see any more. We can log off and go watch Netflix. But
I'm all about
but this particular work that I have done, no, I'll stop there. I won't say anything else.
I feel like
I don't know. I think that I'm just looking at this film from a number of different ways now that it's been like a year and some change after having made it. And I'm thinking about one thing that I do, because I have this reputation of being like really critical, you know, Tavia doesn't like anything. And that's not true. I do like some things. And I feel like when I critique something, it is care. You know, there's some things that I don't even talk, like they don't even register. I'm just like, that was ridiculous. I'm not, that doesn't, you know, I'm not even considering that. So if I'm going out of my way to give a critique for something, then that means that I actually, you know, give a damn. One thing that I do, and what makes me feel strong in my critique, is that I critique my goddamn self. And I read, you know, I read critiques and I welcome good faith critiques, because not everything is in good faith. You know, some people are just like
saying
miserable, right? You know, and not everybody has the qualifications to give a critique. Low key, you know, like so the film has gotten, it's like I'm reading them and I'm like, this is a white man, you know?
What can you actually say? Or
this is a white film bro, you know, you're talking about how it's too loud and how I should have interviewed people other than Black women than you.
Wait.
For you. But one of the critiques that I have from my film, and I shared this with a friend and he was like, yeah, maybe, is that I wish that, and the reason, I wish that there were trans women in the film. My response to my own critique is I was interviewing people who I was just stopping them, you know?
Right. You could tell that you were in this getting the opportunity moment and just like, trying to get the voice of the people, like just.
Yeah. So if no trans woman emerged, then I wouldn't have been, you know, I didn't talk, you know, so, but that's something that kind of sticks in my flesh is the fact that, like, if we're talking about safety, women, like the threat, you know, the threat to their lives is just like exponentially greater. So that's one thing that I think about in terms of like, how could this work be even more expansive? How could this work be even more truthful? So yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, I feel like the work is the time we're still at the basic level of still loving Black films as a whole in this moment, and I feel like it does speak to all Black films, and just I saw many characters that I know in my life in that film, so it was really great to hear and see all the transformative moments and even being asked that question. I'm like experiencing that often. I do ask myself that often. I'm just like, I need to, do I? No, not even, just in spaces and But so thank you for that. And the check-in. It's been a check-in.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Love that we don't have any questions.
I know.
Not quite sure how to feel about that, but I'll take it. So 7:30. I think we have like 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
One thing that I
have a question.
You see one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can you talk more about the creative process of experimental filmmaking versus more conventional filmmaking? I mean, my approach to filmmaking has only been through experimental filmmaking as of now, as it's become a part of my practice, even in every part of, in how I approach storytelling in the moment. It's the freest, it's afforded me the most freedom, I feel like, in being able to tell my story in a way that feels synonymous with how my life works and moves. And so I haven't stepped into conventional filmmaking per se. I'm not writing any scripts or anything like that, but maybe that's how I do.
Yeah, I in undergrad I made, and when you talk about conventional, I'm guessing you mean like a traditional narrative film and a traditional documentary film. So I've made a few documentary films that would be considered conventional, and I've made one narrative film as an undergrad that would be considered, I wrote the script and we shot it and it was like a normal film. One thing that I would say about that process is it's more, like it's mapped out. They're more planned, I should say. They're more, like the logistics, I feel like, are more concretized. There's a script. If it's for a documentary, sometimes there's a paper cut, meaning they have, where an interview will go and what they're going to say. Like, it's more, they've laid it out almost like a kind of diagram or a map. Whereas with an experimental film, I'm coming just off like a conceptual, like an idea. In fact, my first experimental film technically was an ecstatic experience. And I asked myself, what would it be like to make a film based off of a concept? And the concept was transcendence as liberation. I had just seen Losing Ground. An ecstatic experience was the lead character's meditation. We were going through the same shit we're going through now. It was 2015. Folks were in the street. And so I'm thinking about liberation as this kind of like transcendent experience. Well, what would it mean to be overtaken, in this moment, like to be removed from your normative state? So I was basically like thinking about just impressions were coming into my head. Like that's the closest analogy I can refer to, like an impressionistic painter or a dream moment. And so I was not sitting down and scripting anything. I was writing notes, or I'm like reading something, or I'm listening to a piece of music and things come, right? So I feel like the reason it's harder to make an experimental film, in my opinion, is because one has to be tapped in, You have to be tapped the fuck in order to receive what is being dealt, In my experience, I'm writing a script right now, and it feels more like, getting up and like elbow grease, grinding, like sit down and try to get however many pages of notes out today. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm waiting for the spirit, whereas with an experimental film, that's what would happen. Like ideas would just start shooting out of my mind. Oh, you should start with a montage. Oh, you've been listening to this Alice Coltrane song on repeat. That's it for you. She's all about transcendence. She's all about the Holy Spirit, devotional music, like hit it. So to me, it's a little bit more intuitive, the experimental moment, but I'm sure that there are folks who have made many narrative films who would say the same thing. I don't have as much experience in the narrative film world, but I'm over there now, trying to write a script about two Black people who fall in love. But I feel like even that might be experimental at the end of the day. It might be all out of order,
Black love is definitely
first, and then get together at the end. There's a few more.
Wow, yeah, y'all came with it. So I got referring to.
There's like 5 more now.
Right.
Like, now y'all want to talk? We got like 6 minutes.
Came with it.
Do you see Brittany Collins or Terry Francis first? What you say archive, are you referring to, when you say archive, are you referring to specific collections, or is it more of a broad sense of media, archive and this archive? Do you ever find that YouTube or other media sites lose things when you go back for them? Yes.
All the time. You gotta grab what you can. But I don't know. Are they asking about where, like, sourcing, like material, or?
I believe so. And Terry actually runs the Black Film Center archive. When I say archive, I'm talking about spaces, like institutional spaces, but I'm also talking about YouTube. I'm also talking about, other online spaces, or even like physical meet space, IRL, like, cause I go, garage sale.
Right.
Or my Aunt Bobby say ragging. I go looking for things all over the place.
Yeah.
So I'm not just talking about specific collections that are housed within an institution, but as Ayana said yesterday, understanding that even if it's an institution that is radical or non-traditional, that the archive still has been curated. Like there's still a process of exclusion and inclusion. And so all of them I'm going to interpret and work through all of them with the same knowledge that I have to interrogate this, that this is a structure of power. Even if they are radical and non-traditional, especially something like YouTube, because YouTube, the algorithm is, you know, as I was talking earlier, you know, these corporations, that shit is nefarious. Mm-hmm. That's not neutral. You know, they're suppressing certain things and uplifting other things. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
No, yeah, when you say, I feel like during quarantine, I've been doing a lot of yard selling things. And I feel like some people's houses and garages or whatever they're getting rid of are time capsules. And like you said, like the archive was curated. Like you see things from a certain time period, no matter how you're entering the archive, and you can see this story being told, or this you can pull from different speakers. But yeah.
Let's see if they're giving us the up cue. No, they're not. Okay, maybe we can squeeze in Brittany.
I want to hear what Latavia was going to say before the questions. She said it.
Yeah, I don't even remember anymore. I think I said
it. How do you? Okay, are they giving us the rapid answer? Okay, cool. Do y'all have thoughts and or preference about the way your work can and will be incorporated in classroom spaces, particularly undergraduate and graduate level classes, in the application of theory, both film theory and Black studies? Has that already been happening?
I have a shout out to my friend Rafia, who helps me with admin stuff. She's been fielding a lot of requests. People have been getting an ecstatic experience in the GIVERNY 1 for the past 2 years, slowly but surely. And now the GIVERNY document, everybody wants it. And a part of me is excited about that, but a part of me is very nervous about that because I don't know how they're teaching it. I don't know what they're saying. And I'm not going to come to everybody. I'm not going to do everybody's Zoom. In fact, I'm just about to fuck out, low key. Anybody who's watching this and who's sliding into my email, I'm almost zoomed out. So I'm excited to be included in a kind of educational setting because I feel like my final form will be Professor Jatavia, you know, when I'm teaching. That's a goal. I mean, it's something I've done, but it's something that I would like to give more time to once I feel like I've done a little bit more work. But I am a little bit nervous about what professors who are not from my community are saying about this film. Because a lot of the writing about the film, particularly the writing from people who are not from the community, there's been some amazing writing from Black women about this film. Ayana, Emery, Rooney. There's been Black women critics who have written about this film. I apologize if I'm leaving anybody else out, but some of the writing around this film is like, what is y'all saying? They don't have the range. And so I worry about some of these film theory or film production classes. They may only be able to access the work via the form and the structure of the work and not necessarily the conceptual offerings of the work, except for people like Terry Francis, who's in the chat. Like, she teaches courses at University of Indiana University, Bloomington. So there, you know, I think that a part of me wants to write about my work a little more so that folks can kind of have an idea, because some folks, they listen to 1 or 2 interviews and they're like, okay, identity politics. And I'm just like, okay, girl. You know.
Yeah, I guess the complete context under which the work is being presented in the classroom setting, because you think about the university setting and it's intertwined with a slew of topics or other works within. It's not just a standalone day like we're watching Talia Gary's film.
Right.
Just what are the conversations being had? What is being intentions.
Yes, and how is it being contextualized? Not just within a film canon, but like women and gender studies, Black studies, etc. But that's a good question. It is something that I'm having to, I'm thinking about it a lot because I do want it to be, I do want students to see the work,
Right.
I do want that to happen. They said we could take 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay. Where were we?
We're all over the place, girl.
Right?
I like
the next, yeah.
Do you see the one from Brittany Collins? What are the central questions that you're asking yourself for your work? Are there repeating ones? That's a good one for you.
Well, I think as what I was saying earlier about identity. I mean, I feel like I was stumbled into my work finding parts of myself and parts of a lot of questions. I feel like that can be lost in depth and in losing someone central and so essential to my makeup. And so I feel like a lot of questions have led me into creating a specific type of work. The practice that before filmmaking, photography, portrait photography is the type of work that I connect to the most, just because it allows me to have conversations and be intimate and be in person and I don't know, see the facial expressions and just things that may not be noticeable. I don't know, just capturing people in that way has helped inform me and helped answer some questions. That's
your photography is really fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I feel like definitely I felt like I wanted to say more, and so I'm like the moving image, and it allowed me to like push out more. But yeah.
Some of the central questions that I ask myself, and many of them are repeating. I'm asking to me, the whole practice is kind of like, are you courageous enough to do the thing that's in your head? Like I have these ideas for films, and it's like, do you have what it takes? Can you meet the challenge? Can your collaborators? I'm working on this film with my family, lots of family archives. So when you were talking about the home movies, it's really hard, this film. And so I'm constantly asking myself, what is each project, what is each work demanding from you? Because each project demands something different. Each piece, this is a kind of message that I've been getting, the download I've been getting this past 2 weeks. Each project demands a kind of different approach. And this is something that I think a lot of traditional or conventional filmmakers may not understand. But if you are experimental, you know that, because each piece is going to look drastically different. There may be a kind of thread, or thumbprints that people can say, oh, that's a Jatavia Gary film, even if there's no archival in it. But the approach is going to be, and the form, the shape of it is going to be determined by the subject matter, by your collaborators. Mm-hmm. So I'm often asking myself, what is this piece demanding of me? And so this piece with my family has demanded a certain level of courage and submission and the ability to reassess and then pivot. Like I have in my mind a manifesto of how things are working, with my practice. And it's like, actually, can you be flexible? Because artwork isn't made from a dogmatic standpoint. That's how fascism works. With this is made from a flexible, the soft and the supple will prevail, right? So how can you be as flexible with this process as possible?
With that in mind, has it been challenging? Are you collaborating on this body of work with other people beyond yourself? I know you edit and you do a lot of work with like Jatavia Gary, and
that's the epiphany that I'm having, that I'm going to have to bring on more people in order to make it through this. Like I do have these really great Black women producers. Shout out to Domino and Gina.
Amazing.
And just like my family, I consider them, a few of them I consider collaborators because their engagement with the work. But yeah, I've had to kind of shift and understand that I can't be, you know, Superwoman, Black woman, Sapphire. I'm gonna wear all the hats. Like that's had to change with this work, and it's something that I'm just now understanding.
Yeah, I think I'm pushing to understand that too, to get the bigger thing out, releasing and letting go, and being vulnerable in that way. So
yeah, vulnerable is the word. I think y'all can wrap up if ready.
And it's I feel like everybody does want to know about like archives and copyrights and stuff, and I just feel like I grab and go.
Listen,
but like
selling your work, you're gonna have to clear it at some point. I hadn't sold a number of things. You know, I don't have no big distribution deal. You know, so and some of this shit is fair use. So it's really. It's tricky, you know, if we're talking about music, there's a number of clearances that you're going to have to do if and when you decide to sell the piece in a film world context.
Yeah.
But then there's also like, if you're using 2 seconds of something or less than 30 seconds of something, and you have transformed it in a way to where it's not the same, then, you know, there are fair use claims that one can make. But again, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Also, there's something to be said about using this.
I was say that I'm like who owns this? Like
right. There is an argument. Yes, there is an argument for, you know, freeing this shit up.
Yeah.
You know, because the archive, again, it's priced to where you can't see it. I worked for Ken Burns. You know how much shit they sent that man because they have a relationship with him, you know, like terabytes. I'm talking my and your history.
Yeah. Actually, Andrea, who was in here, who asked that first great question, had access to, which I always think about, Octavia Butler's archives that are in the Huntington here in LA. And I remember her applying just to be able to read it. Like you have to apply to get accepted to even have access to this. So you have to be of a certain you know, ability to get access to these things, which just feels like a continuation of something, you know.
Absolutely. So there is a kind of outlaw practice that a lot of us are using, but a certain level, and if there's a certain amount of money that is exchanged, there can be, you know, you may need to pay. But I mean, that's a larger discussion.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a cop.
Right.
No cops listening.
Exactly. Well,
that's what you wrote. Thank you, the Negroes.
It's great talking to you, and
you too.
Experiencing your work again and again.
Well, you as well. Lots of luck with everything. I hope that you are taking care of yourself in Los Angeles. And thank you to the folks who have organized this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.